Welcome to this week's edition of New York Now. I'm Dan Clark. We're starting the show with something that very few people cared about this week, but was actually a really big deal. New York's highest state court, called the Court of Appeals, got a new judge this week. Judge Shirley Troutman was confirmed by the state Senate. She comes from a middle-tier court in Western New York and is the second black woman to serve on the Court of Appeals in its history. Just for context, the Court of Appeals is basically New York's version of the U.S. Supreme Court, and it has a lot of power. Like in 2004, the court banned the death penalty in New York. And a year before that, another decision forced the state to put more funding into schools. So it's a big deal. I asked Troutman what it meant to her right after she was confirmed.
I began my career at Albany Law School, and to come back here and to be a member of the Court of Appeals and join our chief, Judge Janet DeFiore, and my now colleagues on that court is a day I never imagined was possible.
And with Troutman on the bench, the court is now full, and she'll hear her first case next month. In the meantime, let's get into the rest of the week's news with our panel. Kate Lisa is from Johnson Newspapers, and Keisha Kluge is from Bloomberg Government. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I'll be honest, it wasn't that big of a week in terms of the week's news, but something really big kind of happened. So redistricting is going on in New York right now. When we talk about redistricting, we're talking about drawing new districts in terms of the Senate, the Assembly, and Congress. This happens every 10 years based on the census. Our population growth is not great in New York, as we all know. So now this independent redistricting, let's count how many times I mispronounced that, redistricting commission is drawing these new lines. It drew them. It couldn't come to an agreement, as we've told you on the show here before. They put them to the legislature this week. The legislature said, no, go back to the drawing board. We're not going to go with those maps. Keisha, I don't really understand the process, which I'm hoping that you can explain. So we're in this part of the process. The legislature has rejected the 4 sets of maps that have gone before them. What's next?
Mm-hmm. And just to know that this is the first time this has ever been done in the state. So. Yeah. No one knows what's going on, and it's just based on the constitutional language, which is pretty vague. So it's kind of interesting. So they sent the Democratic set of maps and the Republican set of maps, and actually both of them got voted down almost unanimously, which is pretty surprising. And so they're basically sending them back to this commission, which has not agreed on anything in its entire existence. And they're giving them, technically they have 15 days to come up with hopefully one set of maps.
15 days?
15 days.
They've had 4 months to do it. How are they going
I know. But they do, technically the Constitution gives them till February 28th at the latest. So there's kind of some wiggle room, so they might have more time. Now the commission's been really mum on it so far. We haven't heard whether they're even gonna come together. So I'm not sure what's gonna happen with that. The problem if it runs in the long end towards February is that petitioning for those seats starts in March and people wouldn't know what seats to petition for. So it's really important that the legislature keeps this process moving. In the end, if they do get maps and maybe 1 set or 2 set, whatever it is, they'll send it to the legislature, they'll vote on it. If they vote for it, those are the maps. If they vote against it, then the legislature gets to draw its maps. And again, the legislature has a super majority of Democrats. We also have a Democratic governor. So the thought is that the Democrats would benefit in this process.
This feels so silly to me. I don't know. It's very quintessential New York for us to have this independent commission and then to stonewall because half the commission is Republican appointed, half the commission is Democrat appointed. So in this case, you're saying that the legislature, in the end, if they really can't agree on anything and the legislature votes down the maybe new maps that they come up with, then the legislature could just draw the lines? Mm-hmm. So how do they do that? Do they just base it on whatever they want, or how do they come together on that?
So I believe that they can use some of the information from the commission because they've collected a lot of data, they've had a lot of public hearings across the state. So I think that they can use that, but the legislature actually has its own committee, LAT4, which has been continuing regardless of the independent commission.
Oh, great.
So they have someone who's like at the ready, knows how to do this, has the software, and can draw the maps. Typically in the past, when the legislature's drawn the maps, the congressional maps have gone to the courts because the state lawmakers really care more about the state lines than the congressional. So it'll be kind of interesting, but this year we're running into the June primary. So if this process isn't done in time, like I said, there won't be seats to run for, and this could be just a mess. So we'll see what happens with it.
Feels like already a mess.
It already is a mess a little bit, yeah.
Speaking of messes, the state budget is never all that clean. Kate, I want to go to you. The state budget season is starting next week when Governor Kathy Hochul gives her maybe state budget address. It's Friday morning and we don't know what she's doing in terms of that, whether it's going to be just a document she releases or a speech. What are you looking out for in the state budget? It's always this huge thing. I should mention to people, it's not just spending that we're talking about here. Lawmakers usually put really controversial items into the state budget when it passes at the end of March, if it passes at the end of March. Kate, what are you looking for?
Sure. So the governor had more than 230 proposals in her State of the State, and they were kind of vague a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like the details are missing largely. So I think everybody's kind of excited to see what the budget will have on all these different issues that she brought up. Like she talked about a lot of different investment in the healthcare workforce, for small businesses, as they're still building after the COVID pandemic and the fallout. I think everyone's going to be very excited to see what she proposes, or like the details of where the governor is prioritizing childcare and funding for that, because that's going to be, I think, a big sticking point between legislative leaders. So that'll be interesting to get that conversation moving a little bit. And I think some affordable housing details would be good too. So it's a lot, you're right, to unpack, and it'll be interesting on Tuesday to see what she has to say.
Definitely housing, because the state's eviction moratorium is ending this weekend. So the governor has said, let's invest in affordable housing because this is ending. I think there might need to be a bridge between those two things at some point. So I guess we'll see. That's a really good point. She said she wanted a 5-year housing plan, I believe, something like that. I'm not remembering correctly from State of the State. Keisha, what are you looking for in this? We could talk about this for hours. The budget is packed with so many different things. So what's on your mind?
A lot of the similar issues, the affordable housing, of course. There's some tax abatements in New York City for affordable housing builders that for decades have they've tried to rework them in every budget. And Kathy Hochul is actually saying, let's get rid of them and sort of start a new program, the 421A tax abatement. And so that's something that we'll be watching for, is the details, because she didn't really put in what she would want instead of that, or how she would reform that program. And also climate change. The State Climate Action Council came out with its draft proposal in the beginning of this month, end of last month. And it's going to require $10 billion is the estimate to get the state to meet its emission goals. And environmentalists are saying they need an additional 5, so 15 billion. I don't know where that comes from. And at the same time, Hochul has said that she wants to put money towards the rainy day fund and not just keep spending, because at some point that federal aid will end. So we're going to be looking at just a host of issues.
Kate, 30 seconds. This new dynamic between Hochul and the legislature. We have a new governor. What do you think of it going into budget season?
Sure, yeah. I think it's hopefully promising that we'll have more conversation. Like maybe there will be some collaboration between them, since that's what it sounds like, I guess, at least anecdotally, that Hochul does kind of engage with lawmakers. So I'm guessing, I would hope that the negotiations would be, and I don't know, maybe even we can hope for a little bit more forthcoming details than they have been public with in the past. We can dream.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope springs eternal. We will leave it there. It's going to be a long road ahead. Kate Lisa from Johnson Newspapers, Keisha Kluge from Bloomberg Government. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for having us.